Awesome.
So if anyone can hear right now, I have the UdiCoin team here with me. We are on Zoom right now. I'm talking, and we're about to start this interview. Again, guys, I'm really sorry about that. I know Facebook really, they let me down today. I'm going to start looking into YouTube and other different things as well. And I will definitely make this up to you guys. We're going to do a whole nother interview, and I'll make sure it works this time. But all right, so for our viewers, just so that we can start, I wanted to ask again some of the background, who you guys are, just so that people understand that what this ICO actually is and what you guys are doing, and what fascinated you about cryptocurrency.
You want to go ahead?
Yes, so I've been in crypto space for about 5 years and been learning about it. And then I invested in crypto about 2 years ago. And I surrounded myself with people who have a better understanding of cryptocurrencies and blockchain protocols so I could better understand. And I have my business partner, Shadow Dragu-Mihai, right here.
No, and Shadow, you do have a reputation, I hear, so I'm definitely excited to have you on.
I have a reputation. I became interested in crypto coins several years ago when I was discussing with founders of what has become the United Democratic Commonwealth, which is a micronation within the U.S. protectorate. We, at the same time, it was about 5 years ago, and Bitcoin was just getting well known among developers and, not really in the public, but you had to kind of search it out. And the potential of blockchain usages was, and the decentralized transaction and database core was very interesting to us, because we were looking for a way to create an economy that was decentralized and democratic. Mm-hmm. As opposed to representational and centralized. So that's where my interest came from.
Yes, and I can tell you, I live in a representative state, and it's funny, right next door, we have a democratic, the direct initiative kind of government. And it's interesting to see that you have to go and you have to talk and plead your case to representatives who then decide based on their own interests whether they want to pass a law. So I like that you guys are actually taking and not only applying a monetary value to cryptocurrencies, but also creating something new out of this new decentralized United Democratic Commonwealth. It's a very interesting concept, and I do definitely want to get into it more. But I just want to ask some of your guys' experience. What was your background before you actually started UdiPlatform, and how have you applied that to the UdiCoin protocol, I would say?
Well, many years ago, I was a machine programmer, many years ago, when we had 8-bit processors, in the early 80s. But since then, I had moved into political science studies for several years and ultimately into law practice. And then from there, I moved into basically film and TV production. So in that aspect, I'm a producer, a line producer and director, and much of that is project management. Mm-hmm. The essence of what you do is project management, and some very, very complex things. Feature films have lots and lots of moving parts and things that affect legal rights as well as production and costs. So that's kind of what I'm doing on the project, is project management and overseeing all the little pieces and making sure that they integrate the legal aspects, mm-hmm. the economic aspects, ultimately the political aspects, because it's connected with a democracy, there you go. So I've got it sounds like I've done a lot. I do a lot in a kind of a narrow space. Yeah. And that might sound not quite right, because the spaces that I work in are very complex. But I couldn't fix a car, for instance. I can barely change my own oil, and there's just stuff that I just don't touch. Yeah. But in the space that I work in, I do a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I like hearing.
So I have a production background.
I just wanted to just thank him for his background. But yeah, continue.
So I have a production background as well. I've been in the film industry for over 7 years, And I also have a sales background as well. And so with the UdiPlatform, I'm the president of acquisitions and development. And so that entails me headhunting for investor prospects, private investor prospects, as well as some vendors for the UdiPlatform for the products that we'll be distributing.
Fantastic. And I'm very excited to get into the UdiPlatform. You guys, again, when I read the white papers, I understood why you guys made the decisions you did. It was very eloquent. I liked the manifesto and the white papers. It had that two-part kind of thing to it, and it explained the background before you actually got into the white paper, which I think was awesome. Now, I know you focused on this, Storm, but how about you, Isabella? What fascinated you most about cryptocurrencies?
So cryptocurrency is decentralized. So we're not tied to the gold standard or to a central bank. And so this allows for true international transactions, and there's more control to people. Mm-hmm. And so the value can stabilize and not be as inflated. Let's say the United States versus the US dollar, Chinese yuan. They have different values based on the international exchange rate. So cryptocurrency is it's an equalizer for people for the future to come.
Exactly. So I just real fast, I just want to make sure if anybody watching, if you guys can hear us, I have the mic up right next to the speaker, so I hope that you guys can hear both of us in this interview. And due to some technical difficulties, we haven't been able to do this on the actual Facebook Live. We're doing this through a Zoom call, and I'm definitely happy to have Storm and Isabella from UdiCoin talking about their platform. And I want to get into ICOs and what ICOs actually are. So from an investor standpoint, what is an ICO? What are some of the things that people get into these ICOs for?
Right. So first thing, it's Shadow and Isabella.
Shadow. Sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Oh, man. That's a little bit embarrassing. I'm so sorry about that. So Shadow and Isabella. Perfect. Again, I'm not going to forget that now. So yeah, from the investor standpoint, when I'm investing in an ICO, what am I actually doing? What is the actual mechanism? Why do we have ICOs now compared to something like Bitcoin?
Okay, well that's a big question. It depends on the investor or the person that's purchasing the tokens or coins, I suppose, and what they're looking for. I mean, from an investor standpoint, I suppose it permits people to get into what they view as a stock market or a commodity market, or make investments in ways that they couldn't do it. You know, the barriers to entry in the stock markets are you need a lot of money, and there's the idea that you need to be sophisticated. I think that in fact you should be sophisticated regardless, and you know, and if you're buying a token from somebody, you should be sophisticated. But there's small investors are very much looking for, you know, some kind of quick return, and larger investors are always looking for longer term things. So that's, you know, why we have ICOs is because there's a lot of people out there with ideas that they want to raise money for. Okay. And they see ICO easy way to do it. And you know, last year there was hundreds of millions of dollars raised in ICOs, and
I think it's like $6 billion
worldwide. Yes, lots and lots of money. Basically, it's boggling the amount of money. And unfortunately, you know, many of them crossed the line into, you know, illegalities of securities exchange issues. Yeah. And the problem with that is that when ICOs usually cross jurisdictional. In other words, Luxembourg might be issuing an ICO and you're buying it in the United States. Even if what they're doing in Luxembourg is legal, it may not be legal here. And those kinds of issues are there. So there's, you know, why we have it is convenient for everybody. And, you know, what people are looking for is, you know, whatever people look for in an investment. Some people are gambling, some people are speculating. I personally think that the ICO environment is full of speculators, and this is the issue with Bitcoin and its volatility, is because as opposed to longer term developers, venture capitalists and stuff. And sometimes they do put money into ICOs as well. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say, yes, I can understand exactly where you're coming from. And I would definitely stress, especially to our viewers, to people watching, like, ICOs are not something where you just throw money in, a week later you're going to get 100% return. I always suggest investing in things that you believe in. If you see the potential in any project, whether it be Bitcoin or Ethereum or some ICO, that's what you should be investing in. Don't do it because you want to chase dollars and chase the next pump and you think this thing's gonna pay you to get your Lambos. Like that. That's really not any savvy investor, like you were saying. Any sophisticated investor would not be looking for those kind of returns. Even unrealistic expectations. I did a whole segment on unrealistic expectations and mistakes that people make, especially when they're investing, because they're just throwing money in there because they want to get money back. And again, this is cryptocurrency. It's a totally new standard, and it's not going to be anything like we're traditionally used to when it comes to investment and how we're actually valuing these investments. So from the backside, what's it like to actually run an ICO? Is it complicated? Is it confusing? Are there so many moving parts it's hard to deal with? Like, give me some background on what it's actually like to run your ICO.
I guess the first question is, what the heck are we developing? Because are we developing a piece of money? Are we developing a functional token that communicates in particular software? That's the first question. That has to be figured out and then communicated. And why are we doing it? Here's one of my pet peeves is coders that come up with ideas, or they come up with a blockchain application for something they have no clue about.
Yeah.
And typically it's, it's some, there's dating websites, there's social networks, all sorts of things that, why the heck do I have a blockchain for that? There's a famous ICO, relatively successful, called Horizon State, that's adapting a blockchain to voting systems. Do you really want your vote permanently recorded on a blockchain? Okay. So the question, and what I see all the time, my pet peeve, is that coders with absolutely no experience, capability, or education in the industry they're applying a blockchain to,
yes,
come up with a blockchain, which in itself is fairly simple technology, and without the question of what impact it's going to have on the system. When you look at electoral systems, there's mathematics actually affect your electoral results, and there's reasons why we have there's reasons why we have secret votes in representational systems, and you don't have a secret vote in a democratic system. There's reasons for that. And the design of a blockchain that secures an anonymous vote kind of locks in a representational model. And if you develop that without thinking about the application and its implications on the environment, I don't get it. So the same criticism I put to people that create coins for the things we're doing it for, which is we want to use the coin as money to facilitate buying and selling goods and services.
Yeah.
Do you have a background in e-commerce? Do you have a background in merchandising of any kind? Do you have a background in mobile commerce? The answer to this is usually no. So we've got, we had to, from the moment we came up with the concept of a coin, we had to figure out what we wanted it to do, and do we have the skills to do that industry regardless of the coin? Because if we don't, the coin is not relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just going to raise money from people. And so we had to put together a team that knew about, we have a particular kind of merchandising platform that they're creating, which is on-demand video direct sales merchandising. So we had to put together a team that could do that. We have that skill. It's very peculiar skills. Not many people can do it. We had to have people who could code, obviously, and who understood the whole environment, full stack people who understand network systems and how they integrate with mobile commerce and how it integrates, all those kinds of things. We had to have that team together so that we could integrate what we want. So that was very complicated. And then the other thing, of course, is legalities. Right? There's the environment as it's developing in the last couple of years, as it should have from day one. It is concerned with securities exchange rules, is concerned with protecting investors, unsophisticated investors mostly, but all investors, trying to figure out that you can argue about this, but not trying to necessarily control somebody who's issuing a coin, but to make sure that what they're doing is actually real, you know? So those issues, because we don't have laws in this country or most countries yet that actually specifically apply to ICOs, it's a huge gray area and one full of minefields for potential issuers. So we had to address those issues. And of course, all those issues come around to how we present the project to the public.
Yeah.
And because it has to be presented, obviously we don't want to make it look like something that's really hard to read and hard to understand. That doesn't do us good. It doesn't do anybody good. Yeah. But if we make it look like fluff, then we're just, it falls on its head too. So it's a very complicated thing, and how to structure that. Then you got infrastructure things. How do we accept payments and secure them for the ICO itself? Because you have to do something.
Believe me, I was actually and they wound up, you know, they were trying to process refunds, and they couldn't even process refunds in a timely manner, and investors were just getting more and more upset. You know, there's so many things to ICOs. So yeah, I'll definitely let you continue.
Yeah, there's the, you know, on that, there's the recent problems with Telegram airdrops. You know, there was, I can't remember the name of the ICO, but they announced an airdrop on Telegram, and their site went down for days, like within minutes. The amount of traffic that went to their site knocked their site down. And so even those kinds of things that you wouldn't even think about, you have to think about, you know, what kind of traffic are we going to generate? Can we handle that traffic? What do we do? You know, you hope that you get that kind of traffic, because that means you're successful. But if it shuts you down, then you lose your success. And on the same token, you don't want to have the capability to handle 1 million connections to your site if you don't need to pay for that up front, right? Because you know, it's an expense and it's a problem. So you know, it's not, to do it right. I mean, you could just open up a web page and say, buy my coin. To do it right, there's a complicated route, and you have to have a real reason to do your coin.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that, especially now, a lot of the ICOs are either copying each other, or they're trying to just reinvent the wheel, like that Bitcoin with 2 eyes. They just want it to be Bitcoin. Like, how are you going to be Bitcoin if you're just a token? You know, I definitely understand where you're coming from. But what steps did you actually have to go through? I know you talked about some of them, but what steps did you actually have to go to run the ICO? What did you put first, and how did you kind of prioritize what you had to do?
First, figuring out what we wanted to do, because we had the idea, you know, what is the crypto coin and what is its worth and what is its usefulness to the world, and that we put out in the manifesto, and the promise of the blockchain was to be a freeing kind of technology where people control their own economy. They can buy and sell anonymously if they want. And nobody can stop them. You don't need banks to clear your transactions. You can do it across the globe. But for that to be functional in the real world environment, it has to be useful as money. So you have to actually use money. And most coins, the vast majority of them, are digital commodities for sure. Yeah. Even where they're traded for goods and services, you can't call them money necessarily, because they're not generally traded. So our purpose ultimately is to create an environment where cryptocurrencies become money and become usable every day. That's the thrust of our manifesto, and that is our mission. To do that, so that was the first thing. That took a long time to actually, you know, it's fairly simply stated, I think, in our manifesto, but it did take a lot of thought, a lot of discussion, and a lot of, you know, soul searching as to what we think, you know, human rights are. It really gets down to that. And from there, how do you do that? So, well, you use it as money. And so in order to do that, we had to then find a code base we could start from, because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And we didn't want to use a code base that has inherent problems with it. And Bitcoin does have inherent problems. Some of those have to do with if you want to download the blockchain right now, how is it getting close to a terabyte, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's enormous. And it's only going to get bigger, so.
And you have to sync to the whole network before you can even start verifying anything.
Exactly. And so these infrastructure problems, we don't want to just come up with the same thing. So we had to select a code base that was open source, to follow good cryptographic principles for security and for functionality. It has to be open source. So we did have to select something, and it's new. We selected the IOTA code base to start from.
Yeah.
And for very specific reasons. One of them is speed. One of them, that's a very
large one.
That's a big reason why is speed.
Yeah.
But there's other reasons for it. And then also, what the heck are we doing with the token? We want it to be money, but it should be a smart token. And we came up with a usage for what we call the Udi coin that will actually be usable in e-commerce and mobile commerce, as well as a form of payment. And so that usage is we're integrating with our wallet, which we call the Udi purse.
Yeah.
So it has more things in it than a wallet.
Yeah.
Purse, when you open up a woman's purse, or even a man's purse, I guess, if you're in Europe, it has more things than money. It may have a wallet in it, but it also has other things in it.
Yeah.
And so we call it a purse because it does have other things. And so with the Udi purse, you're going to be able to search for products to buy or sell that can be purchased with fiat currency as well as different cryptocurrencies. You can do the transaction from your purse. Yeah. It can be anonymous. It will default to anonymous. And in shopping, it'll be useful on your mobile device or your desktop. But in shopping for those things, it will locate a product. It will find competitive prices in your geolocation, or you can do it online, and principally through our own shopping platform online, but also anywhere else. So and all of that can be secured through the Udi token anonymously. So we can track a purchase. We can track it from the product's genesis through its UPC code, but by securing it through the Udi coin, we can secure the payment transaction and get it transferred and fulfilled to the purchaser without getting personal information from that purchaser. If you use a crypto coin. If you use fiat currencies and pay with a Visa card, it's obviously there's going to be some personal information transferred. But and obviously delivery locations and things like that incidental to a transaction are obviously going to be in the system, but the ability to buy and sell anonymously is there with the coin. And there you go. So that's at the heart of the system.
Yeah. And
so we came up with that idea, and then we've built up kind of a way to use that around it.
Okay, that's and I find a lot of places don't actually do that. They start from, okay, let's build this whole platform and then figure out how to throw a token in there. Where you guys did the opposite. You figured out your token, what it's used for, and then built your platform around it and using your guys' expertise. You're applying and actually doing something. That's why I really like this project. That's why I'm very positive on it. And I see this being something, because it's something not a lot of people are doing, especially with the United Democratic Commonwealth. That's something entirely new. I haven't really seen anywhere else doing something like that. So I just want to take a moment for our live audience, anyone that's watching, any questions that you guys have for these guys. I have them on a Zoom call right now. We're doing a pre-recorded interview where we're going to put this interview out later. So any questions anyone has, definitely feel free to ask. Any comments, we'll definitely have them read and get some answers for you. But we're going to continue back with our questions. And as an investor, when I go into an ICO, what are some of the things that I can expect? Are there going to be timely manners? What are some of the metrics that you guys are using? And some of the kind of typical jargon that you'll hear in an ICO, like a hard cap, a soft cap. What are some of these things, and how have you guys decided to use them?
you want to? I'll go ahead. I talked a lot. Okay. That's kind of an open-ended question. Do you want to narrow that down a little more, or?
Yeah. I'll start with, so how are you guys actually determining your metrics for success? Are you guys looking at a hard cap, soft cap? When is going to be your how long is your ICO running? Some of the basics we'll start with.
Okay, so the actual numbers, I don't want to tell you yet because they're coming out. We're doing our first offering next week, April 30th.
Perfect.
And we don't want to announce those things yet. They'll be available on the website over the next week or so. But we will have, the Udi token itself requires a fair bit of integration with e-commerce platform and mobile commerce, as well as just basic programming, and that's going to take some time to do. So we're releasing an interim token that can be traded one for one with Udi tokens when they're done, and as well as traded for even products and discounts and other things on the commerce sites that we're creating. So they're useful in and of themselves, and they'll be tradable, as just by themselves. So using the IOTA protocol, all of our coins will be created at once. They won't all be issued at once. All the Udi token, and so there will be the amount of coins that we issue starting next week will be our basic development, and once we reach the amount, we'll close the ICO. The amount, again, I'll say next week. But we are hitting a hard cap. It's not very big, because our purpose is just to get to the next stage of, which isn't that far away, but we have to develop the coin. We do have an app that's useful on an Android right now that does use some of the functionality already. That will be out next week as a kind of in a demo mode, a beta mode. It's just the very central core of it, but we've already got something operational, and that connects queries and scans with products and stuff like that. So that doesn't really answer your question, but we will have a small hard cap on the amount of money that we take out of the system, and we're going to use that for development to get to the coin itself and the purse itself. The other part of it is that we haven't mentioned is it's called the UdiPlatform.
Yes.
And the UdiPlatform is the coin and the purse. You get those things just because you get a coin, you need to use the purse, but the purse integrates with the platform. The platform itself is autonomous in terms of it's not connected with the coin by we're developing that separately and operationally. So it's a sales platform that is an on-demand shopping experience and that will accept fiat currencies and several other crypto coins on demand and integrated with your mobile device. And as the Udi coin comes in, the way that communicates, as I've said, with transactions and stuff, will be at the kind of the preferred core of that system. Yeah. So that shopping platform is in development separately, and right now we're accumulating products, and we're going to be putting those up for sale over the next 6 and 8 weeks, and it's going to grow and grow separately. So we're moving on a number of fronts, and the market is designed, hopefully, hold our tongues right, to be profitable, and growable from day one, regardless of if we get, 1,000 coin or 5 million or whatever our cap is. Regardless of that, we're moving forward. So we've got a long-term view. We're not going like, oh, if we get, if we sell, $100,000 worth of coins in fiat currency, we're going to go ahead. And if we're not, then we're just going to sit on our thumbs. We're moving forward regardless. And so we're prepared to develop it on a step-by-step basis because we have a long-term view, and our mandate under the manifesto is to create coin as money, and and there we go. So that answers part of your question, I guess.
I mean,
long-winded.
I know that sometimes, especially with all the different ICOs out there, everyone does their own kind of thing. Everyone has their own flavor or spice that they add to it. You know, so I'm very excited for your guys' ICO. I actually might participate in this one. But I know just because of SEC regulations, you know, when an investor looks to invest in an ICO, should they be looking at maybe a 2-3 month period, or are they looking at maybe 3 to 5 years? Should they be looking more in the long term when they're looking to invest?
Again, it depends. If you're like a venture capitalist and you like an idea and you want to be in for the long term, then you're going to come up with a heck of a lot of money, and you're going to take a reasonable stake back. And that's a different relationship with the development team than somebody who's going out and buying a small amount of coins. Those people are looking for something. Hopefully, they're looking for something that will grow over time, or that, you know, whether they can trade it later on, or some of them are going to hope that in the meantime, if I buy it today, then and the thing is operational in 6 months, maybe they're going to be able to dump some of it in and recover at least their initial investment between now and then. You know, typical like stock trading tactics. So it really depends on who you are and what you want to do. We're hoping that people will just want to get on board and, you know, be able to use the coin as it happens. They don't need to, you know, throw us millions of dollars. They just, you know, get some UD waves, come on board, get the things, and start using coins in your daily life somewhere, you know, and try, you know, that's our purpose. So we're hoping to get all sorts of people. The big giant investors, of course, are private anyway. You know, what the SEC calls accredited investors, basically independent wealthy people or institutional people, and those are different things, and they look for different things. We're not really interested in too many of those, I'll be honest, because I don't think if it's an institutional investor that our interests, as far as our mandate is going to go, is going to be the same. They're going to want to control something, and our purpose is to to get coins out there and used by everybody everywhere they can use them, and control their own environment. So those two, they're not really, you know,
related. I can understand that. So we'll wrap this up about ICOs in general. I want to get more into your guys' platform and some of the things. If you could say one thing to your investors, whether small cap, whether venture capital, what would you say to them about ICOs in general?
So with ICOs in general, I would say look for ICOs that have long-term goals. So you want to find something that has a unique sales proposition. In the case of Udi Coin, we're marrying our currency, the Udi Coin, and the Udi market platform together for the sake of commerce transactions through mobile-first application. Since that's the way things are going now, you look at Amazon, you look at all of these retailers, they're shifting towards online sales. And so we are in an existing market. We're not recreating the wheel. So we're adapting to the precedent in the marketplace. And also we are establishing our currency. So we're introducing that to people so they can have an understanding of how this can be applied to everyday life, especially in the future when we have more cryptocurrencies being adopted in the mainstream, so to speak.
Right.
And I would say the one thing I would say is look for something that you think will work. All right. So if you don't know, if it's I'll just make something up. If it's a crypto coin that's connected to, you know, the sale of cars, do you know anything about the sale of cars yourself? Anything? Do you even have the interest in figuring it out? If you have no interest in that industry, then that might be an indication that you shouldn't be investing in it. And, you know, that's what I would say. Just make sure that you think the idea can work, and, you know, there you go. Put your money
I've invested in a couple ICOs myself. One of them I actually ran a bounty for. I remember reading the white papers, and I understood it. And it wasn't like I understood what they were saying. I understood why they existed. I understood the market sentiment. I understood their use case and what they're actually used for. And it was interesting. It really made me realize, like, there are those platforms out there. They're hard to find, but there are those platforms out there that really, they have something there. And yeah, maybe they're under the radar right now, but when they do get picked up, when they do get heard, these things are going to be juggernauts by the time they're done. You know, so that's why I like this platform so much. This is one of my favorite platforms compared to a couple other ones, especially because you guys have that use case, and you guys are educated. I know that Shadow, you have a background in political science, so really to be able to have not only your own state, but you have the understanding behind how different political ideologies and viewpoints kind of counteract each other. You know, it's great that you have this whole thing going. So I would definitely love to get into more about this platform. I know we've kind of covered it a little bit, but you know, why don't you give them, my viewers and the viewers in the future, so a brief understanding of the platform and what it's designed for.
You want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah. So the Udi platform is designed to allow people to change the currency, the Udi coin currency, for commodities through the Udi platform. So we have been reaching out to several different vendors, going from all the way from apparel to jewelry to what was it? To consumables.
Oh, perfect.
Right.
So you can consider it two things. The top tier, well, three things. The top tier is what we call on demand, Udi on demand. Consider that home shopping network on demand.
Yeah.
We're not reinventing the wheel. We are lifting their business model up and sticking it on the internet, basically turning it on demand. That changes their business model significantly because they do not do things on demand. They're beginning to, but their model basically requires them to stay in broadcast television at very high costs. And this allows us to bring a different level of product to people, products that are smaller runs, more luxury items, more artisanal items, craft items, even one-of-a-kind items. And we can do that at a reasonably cost-effective way with the same video-on-demand tech thing, streaming through Roku boxes through our own website. That's the top tier. The second is consider it a Shopify or an Etsy, basically, storefronts. But it's tied in with the Udi token, so that, as I said before, things can be entirely anonymous. We can text back and forth, and that can be connected with the Udi on demand. Yeah. The bottom tier is basically Udi, what we call Udi Direct. It's simply adapting the open bazaar concept on a personal peer-to-peer sales thing. But one thing I never understood with open bazaar is why the heck it only works with. What is the purpose of that? So we're taking that and making that just a peer-to-peer free marketplace that has nothing to do with making money for our platform, but it's an obvious step so that people can use that. And again, the purpose is to encourage the use of crypto coins itself.
Exactly.
Right. So with our system, we're encouraging the adoption of e-commerce from a lot of e-commerce individuals right now in the marketplace, using Shopify and Etsy, and now they can utilize the Udi platform.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and I know I always wanted to get into like Shopify and things like that, offer a service or a product over the internet. I know that it's very easy, and it's awesome that you guys are not only combining the HSN, kind of the live broadcast on demand feature, but also the direct and the peer-to-peer. So I feel like this is going to be a great platform, and especially with that underlying currency. The currency is designed to pay for stuff, you know?
Right. Regarding aspects, Shadow and I, we have many years in the film industry, so we produce our content professionally. So that's another differentiating factor for the platform. So vendors can come to the UDC or to Udi Market, and we will be providing marketing and promotional pushes of their products to the consumers on an on-demand basis.
Okay.
So we will be producing professional quality content
Yeah.
for viewers to see, and they can make educated buying decisions.
That's again, guys. This is a very thoroughly thought out project. I know you guys spent years just in development on this. You know, this wasn't like a flick of the switch. Yeah, we're just going to make this. You guys took years, contemplated a lot of different factors before you even decided to run with this. So, having read the white papers, I see that there are two parts. I know we got into the Udi Commonwealth. Why don't you explain maybe the manifesto a little bit, what the manifesto kind of outlines for our viewers, just because it's a very interesting concept. I like the first thing you guys said was this is not financial advice. This isn't an investment opportunity. This is a project that's really looking to create something new. So I wanted to let you guys talk about the manifesto a little bit more.
Well, the early promise of the blockchain technology is that it would free up people away from central banks and allow them to basically control their own economies. This has not happened. And for various reasons, it hasn't happened. And in our viewpoint, analyzing it from an economic standpoint, analyzing it from a legal standpoint, and a political standpoint, this is not going to happen. It won't be permitted by governments. And we are seeing, and apparently almost, the Security Exchange Commission steps in various states, in various governments, and similar agencies in various governments, which are there to protect consumers and investors. Those same steps are the steps that basically prevent the usage of crypto coins as money.
Yeah.
Gives control to governments. So it seems a little bit, it sounds good, and but there are issues with it. So we because we are founders of a state that is a democratic state, a direct democratic state, and our viewpoint is not politically left or right, but with the idea of who makes the decisions in a state, and that should be directly the people, not elected representatives necessarily. We felt that the best economy for that is not a centralized fiat currency system, but an economy that is controlled directly by citizens. That dictates a cryptocurrency, which is now possible, not possible even 10 years ago. It dictates a cryptocurrency which can be decentralized and in control of those people. So we had to create that, or else be reliant on a fiat currency either from another state or from our own state. And so that became, we had to create, our mandate as a government, create an economy for our people. And that means that we have to, putting those two things together, we have to go to a cryptocurrency. We feel that that is our, now for that to be useful world, the whole world has to be accepting of cryptocurrencies. And so that's our mandate, is to create that environment. Other people are working for it, and we're not the only people, but it is, that's where the mandate comes from. So
I've definitely, after reading the manifesto, I totally understood it. I understood why and that need for it. And I do concur with you. It is definitely, it's kind of counterintuitive to believe that Bitcoin will replace the dollar, or that the United States government will adopt Bitcoin. It wouldn't be in their incentive. It would basically take the power from them, which they gave themselves. So I can definitely understand that. And I appreciate that you guys took the time and thought about this and created an actual state. And I know that Isabella sent me a link to it. You can actually join and apply for citizenship in this state, and you can receive citizenship in this state. And it's very interesting to see where this will go, especially in the next couple of years, as more of these platforms are starting to come out, and we focus on things like privacy and what these blockchains are actually doing. Now, I know that we had kind of talked about it, but I know you're building on the IOTA Tangle protocol, but what features are you going to add so that it stays private?
Okay, well, it is, there are different ways of communicating as we set up the network we want. There are different cryptographic procedures. I believe the Tangle itself defaults to or is more or less an anonymous kind of system. But the problem is ledger, any ledger, the blockchain ledger, Bitcoin is a perfect example, is a permanent ledger and traceable, as Silk Road found out, or at least Silk Road 2. So you need to build in other things that make it way more anonymous. There's reasons for it not to be anonymous depending on the transaction, but it has to default to anonymity. So we're looking at the code base of Monero, which is a very strong anonymizing. We're looking at the code base of Zcash, and we're also looking at alternative networks like I2P, which I don't know anything about, impossible to possible, which is subnets, onion routing, and things like that. And the ones that we settle on, and it may change over time, are the ones that are going to be the most feasible to implement. You know, it has to be automatic or people won't use it. They just won't. It has to be by default. So you have to on purpose lose your anonymity, as opposed to most coins where you have to on purpose maintain it. So we're looking at kind of a paradigm shift in the way transactions are done, so that anonymity is built into the system and it's hard to lose it, and vice versa. So, you know, cryptographic, there's a number of issues that IOTA has, or criticisms that IOTA has had over the last year. None of them hold weight, frankly. I think it's a good base, and I think it's going where it's going. And if you look at some of the criticisms, there was something that they've used a non-standard cryptographic protocol in one of their systems. Somebody at MIT found that out. They corrected it, you know, and then, you know, and we would correct those things. So we're going to be replacing any of those things that are non-standard, in other words, not open source types of cryptography, with
open source
best practices cryptographic things. That's really the only criticism of the IOTA Tangle that I think holds weight. There are other criticisms, but if you look at the people who have written them, they tend to be founders and supporters of Ethereum very specifically, who frankly are very threatened by the idea of another smart token that is faster and maybe more secure. And I think that's really what it boils down to. There aren't many criticisms of IOTA that I've seen out there. The ones that I have seen are really, when you look at who wrote the article, that's who it is. And it really amounts to sour grapes about that. That's my own personal opinion. People, you know, your mileage may vary. But obviously I'm staking a coin on it, so.
Yeah. Now I'm curious why you chose IOTA over something like Ethereum with their smart contracts, or even something, I know it's going to be still probably months or if not years before it's finally ready, but like Cardano or EOS with the faster smart contract infrastructure. Was there a specific reason that you chose IOTA over something like that with the transaction fees?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Tangle. First of all, the coins are created all at once. Transaction fees are non-existent. By using what we call a directed acyclic graph as opposed to a blockchain, there's different mathematics that are involved, which are much more elegant than standard mathematics, and work faster. And the protocol itself is designed so that the more users in the system, the faster the transactions are approved. Whereas a traditional blockchain, the larger the chain gets, the slower the system gets. There's no way around it. So you have to, if you want something that's usable on a global scale, you have to have something that is scalable to a global level. Now, initially, that's where we have to go with it, and that seems to be really the only choice. The other, the smart contract stuff, that's all usable, but you understand that Ethereum is a general code. We're creating at first instance something that is very directed at buying and selling goods and services and letting people accumulate that. And so we are going to continue with the smart application layer that already exists on IOTA, but and that will develop over time. But we're very concerned with the usability in the real world to buy and sell goods and services. And so our efforts are aimed at that, and on anonymity, and on I will say we haven't discussed this, but on integrity of the network.
Yes.
Because and I don't mean that just in terms of, you know, speed of transactions or, you know, the route that it takes to get your transaction done. I'm concerned about ownership and centralization. When you look at Bitcoin and Litecoin, we know that China owns, or Chinese interest owns 30% of those miners. We know this. So, and we know, and if you don't know this or ignoring this, then your head is in the sand, because they were very open about it. Messed with, in the last 18 months, messed with the prices and the networking to see if it could, and it could, and they were open about that. And then they're going on, and then after they had proven that with Bitcoin, then they started buying up Litecoin mining systems to the same level. They don't need, you know, the famous 51% thing about Bitcoin. You do not need to own 51% of the blockchain in order to manipulate it.
Really?
You only need to own that if you're going to replace it. So
I agree. Yeah, and
what I'm getting at, is the integrity of the system, when it's totally random, is subject to a group of people who are not necessarily working in the interest of the system to pooling up and buying up the nodes in that system. So we have to have a way, and this is one thing we're aiming, we have to have a way to ensure that the network itself maintains itself without the ability of any particular group to affect it. That's something that can't be done if you just let something go out in the wild and never look at it again, right? And so that's why, and again, that's why if you read our manifesto, we say that this can only be done if there is a sovereign, somebody who claims sovereignty as a state, who gets behind it. And as we know, China, I actually haven't seen it come to fruition because I haven't paid attention, but their intention was to create a state cryptocurrency that was supposed to be out in beta mode this spring. I don't know if that's happened because I haven't paid attention. They're not a democratic state, and there's reasons why they want a blockchain, which is a permanent record, to control its economy. Whereas we are a democratic state, and our purpose is to get the whole network controlled by individual peoples, and to make sure that nobody can monopolize a large enough piece of that to affect it to the detriment of the economy as a whole, right? So, but outside a state doing it, you're left with individual groups. I think Ethereum is owned by a small group. Bitcoin random. There's other groups and other companies who administer their blockchain for their own purposes, and as they should, right? Suppose. But if it's going to be used, if the cryptocurrency is going to be used as a currency for the general benefit of people, then you need somebody who asserts that power to make that happen. And so that's why it's done through, that's the same reason why we needed a cryptocurrency in the first place, is our mandate is to make that happen.
Yeah, so and we're going to continue into this. Explain the United Democratic Commonwealth. What is the mission? What is the goal that you guys have with the Commonwealth?
Right, so the United Democratic Commonwealth, we were born out of necessity. So we had realized that a lot of the established nations, they were oligarchical, they were not truly democratic, and we wanted to provide a voice for people to take back their opinions. They are empowered to voice their concerns in governance, and so that's where the United Commonwealth was born.
Let me just explain it quickly. So one of our founders, named Jason Edwards. All right, there is this urban myth in the United States, specifically in the United States, that we are owned by the government by virtue of the fact that the Federal Reserve exists and is a private corporation, which it is. Now, here's a true fact. If you're in the United States and you have a Social Security number, Street number, which is a big, credit firm, that number and an account with an amount of money in it, probably hundreds of millions or a couple $1 billion, represents your value, the value of your labor, your lifetime, to the Federal Reserve, and it is literally mortgaged to the Federal Reserve from the U.S. government, making that whole thing actually an illegal transaction because it makes you chattel, literally, in the United States. So this is not urban myth. This is a fact. But the urban myth was that you could actually get out of this system. And Jason figured out how to do it.
Really?
And I was speaking to him at the time, and we did it to see if it would work. And we located a place within the United States Protectorate that is what is called an unincorporated territory of the United States. There is an incorporated territory of the United States and an unincorporated territory. And incorporated territories like Guam or Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
and an unincorporated territory or places like Kingman Reef and some other various atolls that have not been incorporated. Incorporated territories are ones where the United States has taken asserted jurisdiction, legal and constitutional jurisdiction over those territories.
Okay.
The impetus being that the Constitution applies in Guam and in Puerto Rico, but you have constitutional rights. And the United States also asserts federal authority over those lands.
Yeah.
Unincorporated territories are essentially sovereign states, if anybody lives on them.
Yeah.
So what Jason did, and we've done UDC, is find unincorporated territory, staked legal claim there, transferred our states officially with the United States government to those locations,
Okay.
and then registered with the government here as a foreign state, as a foreign government, and obtained status as a port authority. So we have the trappings and growing trappings of an external state and sovereign authority, which we assert. And so Jason did that, and he got one court at least to recognize that. We've got a whole list of diplomatic and legal and constitutional things that we're going to be doing over the next several years to build that and assert that. But that's the one thing. So we designed that legally, so we're legally a sovereign entity. We are, however, in designing that, a direct democracy, which is a delegative democracy, which is basically a variation of direct democracy. It means that you can take part in every decision of the state if you wish, and if you wish to delegate your vote or your authority to another person in any particular matter, you can do that, but you can always take that back. So that person can represent you, or they can vote whatever they want, but you basically give that authority to them because you don't care about, maybe you don't care about aircraft regulations. You couldn't care less, so you give that to somebody. But if you decide you do care about them, you can take it back. So it's not a representational system. It's a direct democracy. And it's administered by a group called the First Administrative Council, who has executive power pro tem. In other words, temporary power. They act as an executive. They make whatever decisions they have to do. That process is transparent in real time to regular people, to any other citizen, and then at least once a year, but maybe more often, those executive decisions are confirmed by the democratic polity, and they move on. And so that's the organizational state, and that's how we got there. And in doing that, we do have a purpose. My personal bias is towards democratic principles, and by that I don't mean socialist, I don't mean social justice. There's this idea democracy and social justice go hand in hand, and I suppose they do, but consider that Sparta was a democracy and was not a nice place to live in. So the idea that you don't have to have, the other thing is consider Bismarck's Germany, where the first state in the world, you would never call it a democracy, but they had socialized. They had unemployment insurance. They had very strong labor protections. They had paid vacations, all administered by the state. Because Bismarck wasn't a capitalist, he couldn't care less about capitalist versus socialist principles. He was building a state. So we are building a state that can be controlled by people. Our purpose is, our observation is that the world is going towards more representational government, which means less direct input onto very important systems by people. It's going there almost inexorably, and it's going towards one kind of political system, and in everything. One kind of political system, one kind of food, one kind of currency, one kind of entertainment. And we think this is a very bad thing. We need more direct control by more people. And so our purpose as a state is to make that possible. And we're also, because we're situated in a very tiny spot, legally situated in a tiny spot in the Pacific Ocean, we can't have 1 million people there. But we are asserting something else that other states have asserted that isn't often asserted. And that is that we can be what's called a distributed polity, something a little bit fancy in political science, but it means that wherever we live, wherever one of our cities is, we can assert sovereignty, at least over the citizen. The British government has always asserted sovereignty over its citizens here. If somebody gets arrested in Las Vegas, the police there can get a call, and have got calls from the embassy saying, you need to release that person, we'll try that person in the UK, because he's a UK citizen and we assert sovereignty over them. They've always done that. The United States has done that once in a while. So there's precedent in international law. And it's not really that fancy. You consider that every country is actually a distributed polity. If there's two people,
So hey guys, we are here. This is a cryptocurrency Q&A. I have an exclusive interview with the team over at
in a way.
Sorry, you are kind of cutting in and out. You are kind of cutting in and out. I did not catch that last couple of seconds of what you said.
So that's the whole point of the UD, to create.
Yeah, to create this value. I'm sorry. Yeah, you are cutting in and out. I really can't. So why don't we wrap this up? I just want to ask, where do you guys see this coin going? Huh?
So what part? So we've got a bet. One of us. Initially, we see it basing, a business enterprise that becomes a leader in e-commerce and mobile commerce, right? Which is that's it going initially. In the long term, we want it to spread out for goods and services everywhere. So that's really, the point. And what we have to keep our ideas step by step. So initially, we want to get the purse working, the platform working, and integrate those two.
And then slowly build out from there. Yeah, that's definitely, you guys are taking the right approach. Again, it has been such an honor to have you guys on. I definitely learned a lot. I hope our viewers will definitely learn some stuff. I don't see any comments or questions. Are there any final statements that you guys want to make as a team here?
So I would say that, well, it's taken us many years doing a lot of research and a lot of fact checking and everything else and assembling the team to really develop our ICO and to develop our platform and the UDC. So I would encourage people to do their due diligence and have an understanding of an ICO and really see what is the differentiating factor for the coin that you're going to be investing in the ICO. So what will be provided by this ICO in exchange? And you want to think long term as an investor. So you want to see where this can go, and how it can grow. It's not just a coin. You don't want to just invest in a coin. That's a penny.
Yeah, right.
So I would encourage people to be more sophisticated with Bitcoin.
I would just say watch in the coming days to our website, udicoin.global. That's UDICOIN.global. Hope you don't mind me saying that.
You said
and then
global.
You know,
I'm going to drop a link in the comments on that one.
Cool.
Fantastic.
And there you go. I hope that you'll follow us and watch our success.
Oh, I definitely will. I'm gonna consider investing in you guys. I like what you guys have. Shadow, you seem very educated on what you're doing. I know that you know what you're talking about. Isabella, we've had several conversations about this. I love what you guys are doing with this. You guys are really taking the ICO to the next level, and I'm very excited to see what this coin can do. So I'm going to wrap this up here on both fronts. I definitely appreciate you guys. I'm honored that you guys did take the time to come on to this live stream. You know, I know we had some technical difficulties, but we got it done, and I can't wait to get this out for our general audience and get it out there for the people. And you guys can always use this as well. If you guys want to take anything, this is all yours as well. I'll give you guys a copy as well. So we're going to wrap this up. I definitely look forward to seeing you guys soon, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody here on our live stream next week, same time, same place. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Bye.